Hey there, Dave Paulides, Canine Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And we're still in the library. I'm way better than I have been. Thank you for all the kind thoughts. And this week it'd be almost 3 weeks, but cough is way better. Really no other symptoms. Ran 3.5 miles today, felt good. So I'm on the way, and appreciate all the polite comments and things. In this video, you're going to have nothing but letters and things that are generally related to missing people. I'm not going to talk any factual things about our government today, strictly about missing people and some of the letters that we receive in conjunction to that. A little update on our search for a site to go to. It's very confusing out there to go to a website and try to understand what they can do for a specific platform that you may want to go to. So again, just so there's an understanding, YouTube pays you according to how many views and how long people stay on watching your show. If you skip around, it hurts me. If you watch it all the way through, it obviously helps me. The longer you stay on the channel, the more beneficial it is. The more times you watch my videos, more beneficial to me. The more times you go back, more beneficial to me. So that's YouTube. Rumble has this strange pseudo kind of community payment method, and everyone brings people there. The more subscribers you bring, the better off it is for Rumble. And then if you're somebody and you have very few subscribers and you go onto Rumble, you're going to do far better than somebody who per subscriber than somebody who comes along and brings thousands of subscribers. You never really know how many subscribers you bring to Rumble, and therein lies the problem. And you're not compensated per subscriber. Also, want complete freedom of speech, and I want a platform where I can control what I want to say, how often I want to upload. Rumble is one of these places where you can't upload a 30-minute video. You can only upload very small things, and then you have to keep it at other sites and link to it. It's a very convoluted formula. It's the same thing with Getter. Getter is licensing the Rumble format. So these people that throw names at me, you're not helping me, unfortunately, because it takes hours to truly understand. So, need a platform where I can upload a 1-hour video 3 times a week, where I can control how much my subscribers are going to pay. I don't want to charge an outlandish amount of money. And I saw some people were very, very polite and said that they'd pay, a lot of money per month, and I wouldn't do that because I don't want to limit the audience. The amount I'll charge will be dependent upon how many viewers I get by the end of the month. I'll start off very low. And I'm probably not going to move that number. We still haven't decided on that number yet. But probably at the end of 2 or 3 months of a subscriber-based system, we'll decide if we can even continue with that. And if we can, and it's worthwhile, then I will upload an annual fee. But first, we got to see if it'll work. If it doesn't work, I don't get enough subscribers coming over, then I'll probably just disband the system and punt. But let's see what happens. I have a feeling that based on the number of people that have responded saying that they will subscribe, that's wonderful. Thank you. Somebody came up with a great idea. Somebody said that there's a lot of disabled people at home that are on fixed incomes, even senior people. He said, Dave, tell them that there's a lot of applications out there where you can fill out surveys and get paid $5 to $10 per survey. It can take you anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes to fill it out. And they're interested in specific things about how you feel about certain products, etc. And that's a very easy way for someone, even who has a serious disability, to make enough money per month to subscribe to different channels. That was a recommendation made on a video. I thought it was excellent. And thank you for the person who did that. Now, many of you know that I've been a member and an investigator for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, for a long time. Now, I don't actively work for them right now, and I haven't for a long time since I've been doing missing people investigations, but I do have access to their database and many things associated with it. Now, back when I was in Santa Clara County in California, I was always interested in stars and things. And it's the first time I started to notice something in the sky that was very odd. And that was something that wasn't as high as a planet in the sky. And it flashed very quickly red, yellow, blue, pink, red, in varying order. But it did it very, very fast. And it was usually one of the brightest things in the sky. I started to pay attention to that because I knew it wasn't a planet, but I didn't know what it was, and it didn't move. But it would be in different places at different months of the year, and it wasn't a rotation per se. It almost seemed like it was intelligently placed in certain parts of the sky during certain years. Didn't see it in Colorado when I lived there, but in Montana I've seen it again. And I've talked to various people about it, and I found out that they also know about it and think it's very odd. So in the Flathead Valley, I've seen it come up over the Swan Range, which would be to our east. And I've also seen it come up to the south over Flathead Lake. And it'll stay in the sky for several hours, sometimes the entire night. Then it just disappears. So the other night, I took out my big camera and I really went at this thing for about an hour. Angie was laughing at me because I was trying to pay special attention. Now, this is a semi-zoom of it, and I want you to pay attention to a couple things. First of all, you're seeing it when, if you got real close to this, and I'll put it up real close, you can almost see an aqua color around the outside of it. And one side is flat. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, planets aren't flat. So what is that? And if I put real close, you can almost see dots on the inside of it. Now, I super zoomed it, and it even gets more odd. It almost looks like a face. A couple of eyes, mouth, even some kind of structure on the nose, flat side. Now, this thing also has weird protrusions on the bottom. Now, what is it? I contemplated bringing this up to you today, and I thought, I have pretty much a worldwide audience. Today I read responses from India, the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and Austria. So I know I've got a pretty big pull out there of people that are watching. Now, this aerial unidentified whatever, again, sits not high up in my sky, and I've never seen it high up in any sky. Normally sits maybe 30 degrees off the horizon, and it doesn't move. You'll either see it all night or part of the night. And I've taken pictures of it when it was entirely pink, because it's flashing. Depending on when you take the pictures, what it'll look like. Last night I took like 20 pictures, and I never could catch it on pink. I caught it in this aqua phase. I caught it in white. But I'm interested if you see it in your area. And my personal theory on this, and I've talked to others here who are way smarter than me, is that there's probably thousands of these things around the world. And we're not sure what they are. But I'm interested in if you see them. And if you do, I want to know where you live. I want to know what position in the sky you see it. And I'm interested what time of the night you see it. And if you see it just once, don't tell me. Hold your thoughts for a month and track how many times during that month you see it. What time of night you see it. What part of the sky. And then, a lot of people don't know this, but your cell phone probably has one of the best cameras you can buy. And put the cell phone up against a door or window frame. And that's to keep it steady. And then zoom on the max setting and see if you can get a picture of this thing. And the chances are you're probably going to be able to. But you're going to need that steadiness, because when you're on maximum zoom, it'll be whacking all over the place if you don't. So, thank you. And again, don't send me anything in the next week. I really want you to track this thing for a period of time. Okay, next. Somebody sent me a fascinating attachment that YouTube put in front of them yesterday on one of my videos. And I have never seen this. And this person said that they've been on YouTube for a decade and they've never seen this. So I'm interested. Have you ever seen this? And at the bottom of my video, this is what was posted. They sent me a screenshot of it. It says, "Why is it an excellent comment?" And they were referring to comments on the video. And it seems as though they want to either attack the commentary or they're fishing for something. It says, "Inspired me to watch. It's relatable. It's interesting. Shows appreciation to video creator. Informative, funny, and other." If you've seen this, I'm interested in knowing if you have. And if you've seen it on other platforms other than mine and other than YouTube, tell me. Now, if you've seen this on other video channels on YouTube, I want to know. But if you've just seen it on mine, I want to know that too. And we'll call this an excellent comment. So if you've seen the excellent comment form, let me know and where you've seen it. I'm interested in if YouTube is tracking me in some way. And if they are, why? And if they're tracking me, then there's probably other content creators I know that they're also tracking. So, again, thanks. So, I gave you your homework for this week. The flashing multicolored UFO and the comment. Excellent comment. Okay, let's get into some letters. Dave, I've been following you for years, really since you first started. Then I stopped for a while, a year or two, and then recently got back into your recent videos. I wanted to say I like the direction that you're taking. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You said in December video that you received a lot of flack for your commentary about larger societal issues. I'm writing to tell you that I like and support such commentary. I believe it is extremely important that people become aware of the creeping authoritarianism that is present in all Western societies. You have mentioned the point that various institutions wish to control what we think about and how we think. I believe such commentary is important. I love your distinct voice, which is now being copied by so many others, at least many that give credit where credit is due. I'm from LA originally, but I've been living in Serbia for the past 20 years. I'm a former mainstream journalist for the UK and US publications, but left media as I saw it deteriorating. Our only hope in sustaining a democratic society is independent voices like yours, bypassing legacy media and supporting independent thought. Continued success. Thank you. Now, every once in a while I get these notes from journalists. And there aren't many journalists anymore, folks. And a journalist is somebody who actually goes out and digs for the story. And somebody who goes to press conferences and asks the questions we all want them to ask. not these softballs that a 6th grader could hit out of the park. Oh, that bugs me so much. I can't even begin to tell you. And yeah, I won't go down that road. At least not today. Next email. Email. Dave, I just recently emailed you with a theory about vanadium and the potential studies on and around the missing. Vanadium, V-A-N-A-D-I-U-M. But I have another ongoing theory that is built on a foundation of information. I've heard 3 of your videos and my basic interest in all things having to do with space and time, the portals. I know this specific theory has been discussed throughout your videos and that you have been in contact with a person ensuring a future conversation to the public, but I'm hoping this will help aid in the ability to grasp it. This is pretty interesting, folks, so hang in there. The biggest question surrounding the people and the cases that make up Missing 411 is, what happened to them? You have previously mentioned several points that I'll touch on throughout this letter, including things that help ignite my theory into what it is today. The cases either leave the person without a trace or with a body whose death is indeterminable. The details and everything involved in these cases are very supernatural and only leave us with more questions. But what if our village has collectively contributed to the answer? With every story, email, and experience and case we compile and compare leads to a higher level of understanding and acceptance of what or who we may share our galaxy with. Humans are incapable of manipulating time as we know it. So let's say that other beings have created portals on our world, all over our planet, on every continent, and every country. These beings could also see our future and our past. They would be able to establish portals in areas they know would never be overpopulated and seemingly tucked away at any point in time. What would be their purpose? To study us? Yes, very cliche answer, but I believe that's to be the case. Why haven't we ever seen one or captured footage of it? As 3-dimensional beings, we are able to perceive beings from higher levels. We are unable to perceive beings from higher levels. On the other hand, I also strongly believe that we could see them if we are allowed ourselves to. I know some people that once considered themselves skeptics of all things supernatural and extraterrestrial have had personal experiences, but I like to speculate that they still maintained an open mind to the possibility of their existence. My theory is this: there are established portals on our planet, not just from a single being or dimension. I think the number of possibilities are infinite. I also believe that in some cases there has been warnings of preventative measures set in place by the beings of specific portal locations. I will refer to the stories and experiences I've heard watching your videos. The people on the other side of these emails and stories have one thing in common. They all decided. They chose not to proceed any further. They stopped. They turned around and they left. But each one paired with negative emotions and distressing intuitive feelings. Being a 3rd-dimensional being, we maintain a lower vibration, and with that come the emotions such as fear and worry. Now, understandably, that would be a typical response to a situation like many of those experiences, but it shows our inability and unreadiness to ascend. Ascension, when discovering any subject, is seen as a positive and powerful thing. The other common factor with the people that make up the Missing 411 is that almost every case includes a life-altering physical or mental ailment. To ascend could mean a variety of things, but I think in this case it could be leaving your troubles behind. In other words, being allowed to draw into a portal by something unexplainable to alleviate their physical forms and overcome their impairments. When entering a wormhole or a portal, your atoms are dispersed and sent through a molecular level. So what they're claiming is something similar to Star Trek, when they beam somebody to another location from the ship. There are no guarantees or proof as to how you submerge on the other side. Most times when one would go through their portal, their soul would be the main thing that made it through. But who's to say that has been left behind doesn't make up for the very things ever found of the missing? As I've stated many times, there's a lot of theory there that the people that have died, and we don't know the cause of death, Maybe their soul has been taken and they die because of a loss of a soul. For some, it's their body. Others, it's articles of clothing and personal belongings, and for the rest, there is nothing at all. How is it feasibly possible to remove a person from our plane of existence without a trace? Well, by doing exactly that. That they in fact no longer belong and exist in our plane. Does that mean they cease to exist entirely? For us, yes. We're beings of physical nature, materialistic, greedy, sexual, or anything that immediately serves us. When it comes to things we do not see or understand, they just simply do not exist. I've met many people like that. Since we are an audience that broaches ideas and topics with an open mind, I raise the question, would it be naive to think death can only occur when there is trauma to the body? Next question, why can't the dogs ever trace people during their search? Let's go back. The question, would it be naive to think death can only occur when there is trauma to the body? Going backwards, again, I've done over 200 of these videos that you can watch. One of the things I've discussed in the past is you've heard that statement before, scared to death. I've investigated some cases where that thought has come up. Was the person so scared that they died of something that we don't understand? Not a heart attack, something else. My theory is that the phrase point of separation means two things. One is the obvious, and the other is their decision to go where they are being beckoned. Most dogs in these cases hardly ever pick up a scent after that point of separation. It is also a common occurrence for weather to come in and erase any physical traces that may be left behind. The idea of something or someone being able to control the weather occurrences isn't as far-fetched as that used to be, especially with new technology being tested in China. Guaranteed. Has anyone else ever thought of the reason they could never find the cause of death with many of these cases? Because they were in fact not dead. When the bodies of the missing do appear, they are empty vessels. As Death explained, our souls leave our physical selves. Yes, these people and their souls no longer hold the physical form that we 3D people perceive as a state of being. But it doesn't mean they perished by means of trauma or pain. It's almost as if these souls that lived in suffrage were given a peaceful departure, that their disappearances act as staples in time of what is meant to be, will always come to be. I think there is one more thing that all the missing have in common. Not one that necessarily stands out when trying to piece together factual and statistical criteria, but they were all some of the best of us. People that were fundamentally good souls, educated, humble, well-rounded, athletic, and kind people. There isn't one case I can personally recall where someone that disappeared was a fundamentally harmful or hateful person. You are correct. I've said this before. Some people wish to argue this point, or are saying my research isn't sufficient, but I don't see somebody else bringing up that. So if I was a higher being with knowledge of humanity's past, present, and future, and I possess the ability to save some of them, my choices would definitely be some of the best of us. I will end with an article I read about the different dimensions, and it says, Earth, along with many newly formed planets, exist under the third dimension for its beings to recognize their true essence. As you come to exist in both good and bad situations, fearful and blissful emotions, you learn who you are and all that exists, and thus decide to let go of all that no longer serves, so that you rise in consciousness along with your soul essence. Earth has taken a huge downgrade on that ascension impact, delaying its progression for more than 1,000 years. The purpose of Earth originally was to be in the fifth dimension, but since the beginning it has downgraded to the third. Earth has become one of the planets that should come to experience lessons of hardship and fear that will eventually help them ascend while in spirit. Ascension in physical form was very difficult in years before, as the Earth's collective was so dense in fear and illusion that furthered from the soul. The good news is that recently the Earth has finally begun to ascend, moving forward from this dimension to the next, making it much easier for all living on Earth to ascend while in physical. End of quotes. I hesitated to send this theory initially because I didn't have enough information around my theory besides some written text. After listening to your video today and the discussions around reincarnation, I felt compelled to also send you this theory I had written. We exist on a three-dimensional level. This is the only level that we possess physical form. You spoke about whether there was any way to remove the soul from a body. I would say yes. That when we can reach a certain stage of being and ascend to a higher dimensional state of consciousness, also the ones being unable to reach the higher level would be the ones reincarnated as lesser beings until their death, to ultimately be given another chance at human life until they were able to reach the level required to ascend. So again, I appreciate your hard work, and I place a high value on your platform and the use of it to educate us. I use every opportunity I can to spread the knowledge I have of the missing 411 and hope to start a series on TikTok educating people about the cases and keeping them informed as you do on YouTube. Thanks again, Mr. Paulides. Before I go on, she brought up TikTok. Please do a deep dive on TikTok before you join. Deep. Read up about it, where it's made, who owns it, and the possible risks being associated with it. Please do that. End of that story. Next letter. A fan from India. Dave, this is my first email to you. My apologies for my language. Just this evening, I got to listen to your latest vlog and was struck by your comment on the overwhelming presence in the markets of Chinese electronic items being sold in your country. We too face the same issues, and furthermore, we have an added good fortune to have the People's Republic of China as our immediate neighbor. This is an obnoxious presence, a belligerent bully who has the constant habit of encroaching our territory when no one's looking. The People's Republic of China has been a bully for a long time, but back in 2020, the Indian soldiers gave the Chinese a solid pasting, the Galwin Valley incident, after which they realized they had met an equal. And like every bully, just one sharp, painful slap in the face and retort was enough to make them see reason. After this incident, there was a popular sentiment amongst our people to not favor any more Chinese products. This caused, according to certain news reports, a significant loss to the People's Republic of China economy. The PRC was forced to reform their ways with India. Be very of the power of patriotism. Give up their belligerent attitude and be more moderate in their dealings with India. But when it comes to the USA, a country I greatly admire, I'm really confused and concerned by your careless and lackadaisical attitude. Most of the people don't seem to have a sense of patriotism and prefer buying any product as long as it's cheap. And nothing's as cheap as a Chinese product. I see how the Chinese have extended their habit of copying to imitation and further to espionage, and now each and every product of theirs is nothing but a rip-off of some American research. Anyway, there seems to be a bottom-line first attitude predominating in the minds of people in the USA. Price comes first before one's country. Chinese tech products have always seemed compromised in some way. India was reluctant to adopt the 5G technology promoted by the Chinese company Huawei, Huawei. At last, the Indians developed their own 5G technology that was immediately accepted worldwide. I had once visited the USA back in '82 as a teen. There was plenty of goods available bearing the mark Made in the USA. And this mark I associated with good quality and longevity. I came back to the USA in 2000, this time as a student. I was surprised to see there were no American goods, just an overwhelming amount of cheap Chinese and third world goods, all bearing the label marked Made in the PRC. This extended to the classroom too. There was a sizable contingent of Chinese students in every course, and it was fascinating to observe them. They were generally not fluent in English and had trouble following the subtler nuances of the English language. They also seemed to operate under some kind of herd mentality. There was an alpha in the class that rest bestowed and followed implicitly without question. That alpha redistributed jobs amongst the herd. The alphas were smarter, more intelligent, sharper, and somewhat ruthless to the lessers and the minions. In retrospect, I now believe that the alphas were probably connected to the PRC, royalty, and others were just serfs. And that's even more worrying, is that many of these alphas were now settled and working in the USA. Amazingly, I felt compared to their intelligence gathering systems, the American intelligence gathering apparatus are angels, really. At least they didn't haul you off to the gulag and re-education centers if you spoke something against them online or in public. I'm also alarmed at the deteriorating quality of social life in the USA, how everyone has to be politically correct. To be careful not to tread on anyone's toes and try not to hurt anyone's words and to be so apologetic. How some old evils were being regurgitated and constantly raked up, and the people were forced to feel guilty or some old mistakes again and again ad nauseum. I was also amazed at how overly accommodating you were at accommodating illegal immigrants, bringing in riffraff at an expense of talent. I was angered to see how some people had no sense of belonging or ownership. They were in positions of power, overtly indulged in nepotism and anti-national work without any fear. Honest taxpayers seemed not to have much of a say in anything, it seemed. There was too much fluff, and the people's common sense and intuition were being smothered by it. Well, I have a lot to say, but I think it would be easily degenerate into a rant, and you would definitely not like that. I really pray for your country, Dave. The USA is a rare country that appears once in a millennia. It is indeed a melting pot, as they say, but of late the ingredients currently being added to the melting pot is all rotten, third-rate stuff that I'm afraid will only bring down the value of your final product. My prayers to your country. I wish the USA well, and that it stands strong again. And my prayers to you, Dave, and my prayers to Ben's soul, and that it rests in everlasting peace in God. I couldn't have said it better, folks. Could not have said that better. Thank you so much for sending that. I was out today, and I won't say where I went, but I went to a store, and I was looking at some items, and I made it a point to find something made in the USA to buy. And I can tell you that it wasn't easy. And I think it ended up costing me a few dollars more than if I would have bought something made in China. But folks, got to take a stand every once in a while. And I think we've reached that point in our world where we need to do that. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to get into the missing stories right now. And there's 3 of them. And first case involves a man named James Thorn, who's 65 years old. He lived in Alberta, Canada. Picture of James. Now James, this incident happened January 2nd, 1913 in Calgary, just west of Calgary. He was a rabbit hunter, and he left on the 2nd, told his wife he'd be back by 3 p.m., and he didn't return. His wife called the RCMP, called the city police, and they went out there and started looking. Well, it was January in Calgary, and it was cold, and he was a member of the International Association of Foresters, the IOOF. Really don't know much about them, but I will tell you one thing, that in researching this story, that organization pulled out every possible friend, searcher, member, and they contributed everyone they could to this search. And the Boy Scouts came out, police, firefighters. There was a sudden cold spell during the search that actually pulled the searchers out of the field. And that was unusual because Calgary's always cold in the winter. And but this was so cold that the searchers pulled out. Let's show you the area he was in. So, this is Calgary. Calgary. The Canadian Rockies are over here. And he was in an area just west. And this is thick open land here. And he was hunting rabbits on a rancher's field. So they started the search, and they went about it systematically. And it went on for 5 days. And they thought that they covered up to 8 square miles. Hundreds of people, until they hit that cold snap. Then they had to stop. Now the rancher was almost the center point for the search. He had his ranch house there. Well, on January 21st, 1913, 19 days after James disappeared, the rancher's walking around behind his house, just on the top of a little coulee. And he looks down. Can't believe what he sees. He sees a man leaning against a tree with his feet crossed, about 20 feet down the hill, on a path he walks all the time. Called the sheriff. Police came out. It was James Thorne, frozen solid as a rock, rifle sitting there next to him, and his game bag had 2 frozen rabbits in it. Everyone's puzzled. Coroner came out, didn't say anything. The shotgun he had 1 live round, 1 expended round. Now this was 20 yards from the ranch house. Article in the paper used the word extraordinary. It was extraordinary that James hadn't been found because he was an area that was in plain view to everybody that had searched for days. And it was also in plain view of the rancher that lived there. Now, when he disappeared, when James disappeared, the wife said that she didn't think he would travel far from his car because he had a bad leg, a disability. So he was a hunter. He was in a coulee. He was right near a river. And he was in an area that had been searched hundreds of times. Searchers had walked past this area hundreds of times. How does this happen, folks? I had a comment today when I was reviewing comments on the video. Stop putting up these stupid older stories. I don't want to hear them anymore. If it's more than 3 or 4 or 5 years old, it's unimportant. Don't even talk about it. I obliterated the comment. But I want you to understand how short-sighted some people are. Now, James was found, and knowing that it was 108 years ago, it tells me that these type of disappearances and incidents have gone back that far. And it fits every part of the profile we've established. Now, the paper said that they thought that James died of hypothermia. It was a completely insane statement. That's my opinion. Because James was within sight of the ranch house. Just walking up the coulee just a little bit, he was there. And he had hunted this area dozens of times in the past, this specific property. The idea that he was lost didn't make any sense. He still had a round in his shotgun, so he could fire off a round for help. None of that made sense. And local reports for local consumption. I credited Gagnon from New York Police for making that statement. And the reason why it's important is if a local reporter says something is odd, it doesn't add up right, all of a sudden there's a lot of mystery and the community will start to get concerned. If they say, he was lost, he just died of hypothermia, everyone forgets about it tomorrow. That's what happens all the time. And in this case, I don't believe that James Thorne was lost, sat down, and died. Sorry. I also don't believe that hundreds of searchers walked by that location and he wasn't seen. I don't understand how it happened, but I don't believe he was there. So, it's the first case, just west of Calgary, Alberta. Now, just west of that location, there's actually a cluster of missing in the Canadian Rockies right there. Next case is from South Dakota. The area on the far western edge of South Dakota, right along Wyoming, has had some really, really strange disappearances, coupled with Wyoming. October 1st, 2019, Larry Gensling, 66 years old. I'll show you Larry's picture. Larry was a good man. He wanted to spend time with his nephew. So he went hunting with him, elk hunting, near the Deerfield Lake, South Dakota. Larry had hunted there many times before, and he went with his nephew and he decided that they were going to separate and hunt together, or hunt separately. And they were going to come up with a time to get back together. Well, later that day, at the time they were supposed to meet, the nephew got there and waited. Got a little concerned because Larry was a diabetic. But the nephew knew that Larry was a very seasoned hunter, very smart man, and knew this area. But the time came and went, and the nephew called the sheriff. And the Pennington County Sheriff arrived. They realized the seriousness of the situation, and he called for search and rescue. And that started a lengthy process. They brought in professional canine dogs, helicopters, drones, horses, equestrians. And at one point, the fog was so bad in that area that they had to ground the helicopter because it was too dangerous. At one point, the South Dakota National Guard and the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol got involved. I've talked to you about the Civil Air Patrol before, a volunteer organization of pilots that do search and rescue. And they also do many other things to benefit our world. A very, very good group of people. Own expense, own time, own airplane. Really good people. But they searched 6 square miles. And that's a big area. And they did it in a 5-day circuit. And the sheriff said that he thought he had covered all that area very well. Now this happened October 1st, 2019. May 26th, 2020. So, talking about almost 7 months later, some people are hiking and they find Larry's body 2 miles from the point he was last seen, in an area that had been searched dozens of times. The coroner couldn't determine a cause of death, and at one point they said, well, he possibly died of a heart attack. At another point they said maybe he died of hypothermia. There was a lot of conjecture, but there was no firm affirmation. But a couple things. In this area of Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, right along that border, down to the Colorado border, all along that far eastern edge of Wyoming, there's been a series of highly unusual disappearances. In this case, Larry was an elk hunter. He was German. Canines couldn't pick up a scent. The weather played a role. And he had a permanent disability. He was diabetic. Almost fits it to a T, what we're talking about. So why couldn't Larry be found? Since Larry was armed, why didn't he fire off 3 rounds like all hunters know to do if they're in danger? He was well within the primary grid search for him, which was also of concern. Answers are few on this case, and there was a big effort to find him. In these incidents, I feel really bad for the nephew, because for his lifetime, he's got to live with, he was the last person to see Larry alive. But what is it with German elk hunters in this area? Now, I want to show you the area. Now, this is a Deerfield Lake area where they were hunting. This is the primary search zone for Larry. And he's found in that search zone. He's found in here. Now, this is the area they were hunting. He's walking out this way. And they said he's found up in this northern area. It doesn't make a lot of sense because you can't get lost here. Major road, major road, major road, major road. You get lost, you walk in any direction, you're going to hit a road. It makes no sense. You know how many times I have spoke to people and spoke at conferences about this, and I explain canines not picking up a scent. The other day when I talked about a case, this was several weeks ago, and it was in Hawaii, and they said, well, I heard a couple comments that, well, maybe he fell into a lava tube. Folks, you got to think through this. If there's canines on scene, why wouldn't the canines just track him to the lava tube if he fell in? And then if the canine tracked him there, guaranteed there's going to be searchers going in after him. Guaranteed. So that's not the answer. Now, since we're talking about Hawaii and their lava tubes, I'll talk to you about another case. Incident involving a man named Reuben Saenz. Some people would say Saenz, other people Saenz. Ruben was 31 years old, missing June 21st, 1989. Lived in Southern California. He arrived in Kauai, Hawaii, May 1989. He's going to plan a lengthy camping trip. Ruben was highly religious. And he told his family that he was going to go to Hawaii and try to find his meaning in life there. He was described as really smart, introverted, and thoughtful. Reuben Saenz. Now, Ruben gets to Kauai and he decides that he wants to go into a place called the Kalalau Valley. Should ring a bell to some of you, because I told you about a case just a few days ago involving a man by the last name of Marks, and you can find the video. Also disappeared in the Kalalau Valley. Kalalau Valley is described as almost pristinely gorgeous, and a lot of people think that there's some kind of portal there, some kind of special electricity there that has a special meaning for living, I guess. There's also a lot of homeless people and people that live off the land that are now living in Kalalau. And reports now is that it can be pretty dangerous and not to hike in there alone. Now, when Ruben went there in June of 1989, there were some people living there that were homeless, and they were making it their home, but it wasn't described as dangerous. Now, there's a couple ways to get in there. One way is you do a 22-mile hike. And the hike is rugged, rough, and exceptional. Now, if you remember when I told you before, Marks came in and went to an overlook, and he went down over the cliff on a zigzaggy path, very steep to the valley floor. 22-mile hike in, or you take a kayak in and you hit the beach and you come in the way Ruben did. So he came in by kayak, landed on the beach, and started to come up the valley. This is Kauai. So he comes in, has a backpack, sleeping bag, food, essentials, and he was immediately throttled by the beauty of the valley. Imagine, it takes a huge effort to get in there. So you can imagine how pristine it is. And there's people in there living off the valley, which tells you that there's a big food source there. So Ruben gets in there, tells us when he last spoke to his family, told him when he'd be out. He didn't come out. And this is back in '89, so cell phones, no. So his dad and his sister grabbed a flight, flew into Kauai, knew where he was going. He gathered police help. And they were able to determine that people had seen him in the valley. Helicopters came in, ground pounders. It was an extensive search. A lot of people were interviewed. Now, Kalalau Valley, this is the second person I'm telling you about that went into that valley and never came out. Never was found. Backpack and its contents never found. Ruben just disappeared, as did Marks. And that doesn't make any sense, folks. Now, even in more public areas, as I did in the exclusive Hawaii video that I did a couple days ago, those people that disappeared, the 3 that I did in that video, were in areas that were not nearly as remote as the Kalalau Valley. Now, I've had some people write to me since I did that Hawaii video, and several people said that there was almost some supernatural things that go on in these sacred pools. And I've told you about the marchers that come out of the mountain at night. There's a lot about Hawaii that I find intriguing. And there's a lot of old fables and things that come out of the islands. And same as the Native Americans here, to completely discount them, I think it'd be foolish. So there's probably an ounce of truth in all of these things, and you have to kind of weave your way around to understand where that truth may be. Now, in Ruben's case, they went back. Police still have him listed as missing. They've talked to a lot of people. Never found what happened to him. You know, it's easy to say, oh, you know, he's a victim of a crime, but there's not that much crime in there. And he was a good soul, highly religious, trying to find his way in this world, just like a lot of us are. So, deep compassion for his sister and his dad. Very sorry that happened. So let's talk about the 3 cases today. Let's start with Larry Gensling, the elk hunter, and James Thorn, rabbit hunter, both hunting, both armed. One thing I've told you before about hunters, I think that they are difficult targets if there is such thing as a target in this world of missing people. Because these people are armed. They know how to use their firearms. And they're stalking the prey, which means that they're not going helter-skelter, loud and things through the bush. Being real quiet, stealthy. armed. Most of these people have been to the places they were hunting many times in the past. So, I know a lot of you have said that you hear things next to you, sometimes like things walking in the bush paralleling you. Now, if I was out deep in the bush and I was heavily armed and I hear something like that, I would probably visually tell that thing or whatever it is, you better leave quick, because I'm going to put a couple of rounds your way because you're starting to scare me. And if you're a person, you better leave quick. Because when you're deep in the bush like that, you have to be careful. And there are stories, few and far between, of hunters killing other hunters. But I don't think that's happening in these instances because bodies aren't found. In the instances where other hunters are killed, their bodies are found. They're found with bullet holes in them. It's not easy to conceal a body from a cadaver dog. You can't drag dead bodies very far, even if you're a superhuman. So the idea that these are killed by another hunter, no, that's not happening. But in the instance where a hunter is being stalked, are they looking for a formidable foe? Are they looking for a challenge? In the letter, the person said, a lot of the people that are taken are really good souls. They're really good people. They aren't criminals. They aren't people trying to do harm to others. A lot of these people are very religious. A lot of these people are trying to find their way in the world. And it seems like the world takes them. That is really disturbing. In one of the videos I talked to you about, the Hawaiian video, I told you about a young person there that actually stayed at a Krishna temple in Oahu who later disappeared. It's very strange. And I don't take these statements lightly when I say these were all good people. Some people have attacked me and said, well, Dave, aren't all people good people? No, sorry. The people who committed the 547 riots last year? No, I don't believe those are good people. People that are rioting, looting, taking other people's property, not a good thing. Somebody who is trying to get their way in the world, trying to follow religion, trying to be humble, trying to find their spiritual way, somebody who's supporting themselves, someone who's helping others. I told you about this all along this path of these videos. And I want you to understand that it took me hundreds of cases reviewing these to come to some sort of a semblance of that profile of these people. And to think about, a lot of these individuals were college students who were excelling. A lot of them were college students who were athletes. And the people that don't fight that profile, but accept it and try to learn from it. As somebody said to me maybe 3 months ago, he said, Dave, what if whatever's doing this is looking for a certain profile themselves to integrate with their world, and that person has to meet a certain persona to be successful, to not cause problems, to integrate, and to excel in this other world, and they know what that profile looks like. And that's what they come here to look for. And maybe they have an exceptional way of reading people that we obviously don't have, just by looking at someone. Or maybe they're studying certain aspects of the human that we don't understand. One of the things I've told you about many times is that a lot of these people have some kind of lifelong congenital issue. In Larry's case, he was a diabetic. In James' case, he had a disabled leg. Maybe they're going after those people because they're trying to understand how that evolved in their DNA. Now, if I don't talk out loud to you and explain this along the way, it's hard for others to run up and grab this and understand it. I have no idea what's happening. I really don't. And some people have accused me, oh, you know what's going on. You know who's taking these people. Well, if you know that I know, then tell the world what it is. Put it on the video. I've let everything stand that people think all kinds of strange things. I don't care. Put it up there. But don't accuse me of knowing, because I truly don't. It is a very complex scenario. And as many have stated that, you know, Dave, there's a good possibility that there's more than one thing going on here. Just like I said, what if one group or one faction of a group is studying hiccups in our DNA that cause these disabilities? And what if another group is coming for specific personality types to fit into their world? I don't know. And for me, even to imply that I understand, I don't. But some of the characteristics I've told you have evolved from people who have read all the books and understand it as good as I do. And to support those ideas really needs that complete understanding. In each of the movies I've done, I've picked out a small sub-segment of this entire picture that I've written about. In the first movie, Missing 411, which you can watch online now, I think it's on Hulu and Amazon, I dealt just with children. And that movie was designed to give you an insight as to phenomenal distances very small children have been found from the point they were last seen. Dave, why did you do that? I did that because if I chronicled adults that were found 8 miles away, you'd say, hey, so what? A guy walked 8 miles. Yeah, but what if it was a 2-year-old that went over several mountain ranges, which I did chronicle? Then it would wake you up to the fact that something different happened here. In the second movie, I chronicled a series of hunters that disappeared. And I interviewed law enforcement that were equally baffled about what happened. And I gave you specific issues that surrounded those disappearances. Example, in the case of New York, they heard a loud sound during that time that the hunter disappeared. What could that loud sound have been? Nobody knows. Again, I really want people to start thinking outside the box. That means outside the box that you have around your head right now. And what do I mean by that? There's people watching in the audience right now that have interests in the life of a soul. There's other people who have a deeply religious background. There's other people that have an immense interest in UFOs. There's others that have an immense interest in cryptids. And therein lies your compromised state. Because if you're in one of those boxes I just described, then you're lacking knowledge in the other boxes I talked about. And until you go out and you spend as much effort researching those other boxes, you truly don't have a 360-degree view of our world, because it takes an understanding of all those boxes. Now, have I claimed that I'm an expert at any of those boxes? No. But this is why I focus on all of them. Some people make demeaning statements about religion. I think that's a huge mistake, because one of the best historical documents we have is the Bible. And all the different religions in the world have their writings that give us an inkling as to what's going on in their world at that time in history. And those people did some amazing work. So, again, UFOs, cryptids, religion, talking about the soul, reincarnation, whatever that might be, Folks, force yourself to get out of that box and step into another one and spend an equal amount of time trying to truly understand it. Because folks, there's things there you need to know. And the more you understand about that 360-degree view, the more valuable you will be on this earth, and the more knowledge base you'll have in making decisions that'll help you. I'm being serious about that. I greatly appreciate you being here. Again, this was 3 missing person cases and some letters that were just, I think, outstanding. Please give me a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get this video to 99%. And please make sure you were subscribed. Don't buy my books on Amazon, eBay, etc. You're going to get ripped off. All the Missing 411 series books are available on our website, which is listed right below the description of this video. So you're looking at the screen, it says description of the video, it's right there. It'll also be under the pinned or the #1 comment of all the comments on this video. And if you're not reading the comments, I think that's some of the best parts of the video. You guys do a great job, and I'm deeply indebted for all those comments. Thank you. So I'm still here. I don't know how much longer I will be here, but like I said, I've got a couple weeks worth of work to do to figure out where I'm going to go next, because it's such a critical decision. I don't want to bounce around. Next place I go, I'm going to stay. And thank you for your friendship. Thanks for being part of the village. We really have a valuable place here. It's not because of me, it's because of you. And all the people out there who have mental health issues, people out there who are recovering addicts, understand that the people on this channel, our village, are probably some of the most compassionate souls you will ever meet. And putting your comment here, you will never, ever be assaulted, embarrassed, or demeaned. And I try to do a really good job of eliminating those creatures that do those things. People that are in a compromising position, they need our help, and we're going to help you. So, thanks again for being here. Please refer the channel to other people, and remember that we all care. Have a great day. Paulides out.